Have you ever felt forgotten, neglected, as if your own family turned their backs on you when you needed them the most? Imagine being betrayed by your own children, abandoned in a hospital, as if your life no longer had any value. That's exactly what happened to me. But you know what I did? I got my revenge in the will, and this story will surprise you. Stay with me until the end to discover how a mother, even in her old age, found the strength to turn things around and fight for the dignity that was denied to her. I want to know what you think about this. Is it courage or justice? Leave your comment and share if you know someone who has gone through something similar. I, Elvira, 82 well-lived years, wake up every night to the creaking of the wall clock. The only sound that dares to break through this family abandonment. The house, once full of laughter, now smells of old age loneliness and cold coffee, of my for children. Only Raquel visits me. The others got lost in the maze of their own disregard, as if I were an inconvenient memory. I pretend to be strong, but I carry a silent pain that throbs more than my spine. Still, I hold my head high. Dignity in old age is not begged for. It's earned. It was on a rainy Wednesday that my body betrayed me. I slept in the bathroom, hit my hip, saw stars, and begged for help on my cell phone. Duo said he was too busy. Silvana replied with a muffled laugh in a voice note. And Eduardo doesn't even have voicemail. And there, on that cold floor, I felt the cruel sting of family betrayal. Minutes turned into hours, until Raquel, arrived breathless, knelt beside me and whispered, "It's okay, Mom. I'll take care of you." She lifted me as if holding cracked porcelain. That's when I realized, for some, motherly care is a thing of the past. For her, it became a mission. After the fall, my world became more fragile than blown glass, but I still walked, holding onto my girl's arm, until one gray Monday, the clock stopped at 6:18 a.m., and the ground seemed to disappear beneath my feet. Raquel collapsed in the kitchen, pale as a sterilized bedsheet. I felt the echo of despair bouncing off the walls, and in that moment, I understood that the one who supported me now needed me. The silence in the house turned into a siren in my head, and just like that, my world fell apart on a Monday. I saw her stumble, holding onto the counter as if the floor had turned into waves. Raquel fell with her eyes wide open, but distant, as if she were looking at me from another dimension. I screamed for help, but who listens to an old woman in panic in a building where no one wants to get involved? I knelt beside her, my legs trembling like dry leaves in the wind. I tried to lift the phone with hands that can barely hold a teacup anymore. In the end, it was Donacida's son from apartment 103 who called the ambulance, and I, even in my frailty, got into that emergency van without hesitation. A mother is a mother even when life demands otherwise. At the hospital, the diagnosis hit like a slap in the face. Severe viral hepatitis. I didn't even know people still got that. The doctor said Raquel needed complete rest, close monitoring, and someone strong by her side. Someone strong. I looked at my reflection in the glass door, slumped shoulders, sunken eyes, hair tied back out of habit, not vanity. I tried to be strong, but in that moment I was just love, and that was enough. I wanted to bring her home, but the doctor was clear. You can't handle this alone. Little did they know that the other children had just been waiting for this moment. 2 days later, Jewel showed up, barely looking me in the eye. Silvana arrived wearing too much makeup, and Eduardo brought a black folder under his arm. We came to talk. Mom, talk. Nothing of the sort. That was a convenience meeting. They spoke with a tone of fake sympathy, like I was some antique vase they didn't know where to place. Raquel can't take care of you anymore, so we need to think about your well-being. That's when I understood. The plan wasn't to save Raquel. It was to reorganize Elvira. And little did they know that behind this tired voice still lived a whole woman. In the cold, white corridor of the hospital, I waited for news about my girl. It was past 3 in the afternoon when I saw the 3 of them approaching. Jewel with his busy executive demeanor, Silvana reeking of expensive perfume, and Eduardo clutching that black folder. They didn't bring flowers, nor fruit, not even a concerned glance, just rehearsed smiles and pre-made phrases. When the doctor said Raquel would need weeks to recover, they exchanged glances. What I saw in their eyes wasn't pity. It was relief disguised as pragmatism. She can't take care of you anymore, Mom, Jewel said, as if presenting a report. Silvana added, We've talked about it. What's happening is very serious. I could feel they weren't there for Raquel. They were there for me, as if my existence was a problem to be solved on a whiteboard. While they spoke, they faked empathy, but the eyes don't lie. They were cold, distant, like someone talking to a stranger. It was emotional abandonment painted with strokes of concern. My heart was screaming. And where were you when I fell? That's when Eduardo opened that dreaded black folder. The sound of the zipper seemed to slice through the air. From it, he pulled out some stapled papers and a brochure with gold letters. Golden Years Residential. The care your family deserves. And there I was, sitting in that hospital chair, feeling like a piece of furniture being relocated. They talked about frequent visits, a welcoming environment, trained professionals. But all I heard was, You're a burden. I took a deep breath. And Raquel, I asked. Silence. That's when I understood. in their hearts, my story was already being closed. In that stuffy hospital room, surrounded by voices that had never embraced me, I found myself cornered between empty promises and hurried glances. Eduardo, with his carefully practiced calm, opened the documents as if reading the instructions of some ordinary medication. The nursing home is in Indianapolis, Mom, away from the chaos. It has nurses' day and night activities, balanced meals. As he spoke, the words began to blur together. Nursing home, far away, identical days, forgotten. They tried to sell me exile disguised as relief, and they still smiled, saying, "We'll visit often. Don't worry." Silvana held my hand as if it were a gesture of affection, but it was strategy. "You won't be alone," she said, looking more at Eduardo than at me. From the corner, Jewel added, "We have to think about what's best for everyone, as if my home, my story, my independence were now a shared burden." I breathed slowly, felt the air grow heavy in my chest. I didn't sign because I agreed. I signed because I no longer had the strength to fight. My body was weak, my soul exhausted, and what hurt most wasn't the departure. It was the indifference. Raquel was still in the hospital room, hooked up 2 and 4, breathing slowly. I wanted to go in, to tell her it wasn't my choice, that I didn't want to go, but they held me back. "You'll say goodbye later." Goodbye, as if I were leaving forever. I left that hospital as if stepping out of my own life. Eduardo's folder was now my guide, and inside it, there were no memories, no smell of cake in the oven, no voice of Carlos calling me my queen. There was only an address and a room named after a flower, but without roots. The gate to golden years opened slowly, as if even it felt the weight of what was to come. Everything was clean, pristine, smelling of disinfectant and absence. A young woman in a white coat greeted me politely, but without soul. I was guided through hallways so white they hurt the eyes. When the door to room 12 opened, I came face to face with a thin elderly woman, her gray hair neatly combed, her gaze lost on the wall. "This is Mrs. Marinalva," they said. She didn't even look at me. She just pointed to the empty bed and went back to softly calling, "Lucas, Lucas, come back to me." The walls were decorated with artificial flower prints and motivational phrases that didn't match the faces I saw in the hallways. No one was in a rush there, but no one had a destination either. Yes, everything was organized, but it was a kind of order only someone who's been forgotten in a hospital understands. A lifeless calm. I sat on the bed, looked around, and felt the chill crawl down my back. No one here knew me as mother. No one knew about the sleepless nights rocking feverish children, the meals stretched to feed everyone, the letters I kept from my Carlos. I was just another resident. That first night, I tried to sleep, but the sheets smelled fun. Mrs. Marinalva kept whispering her son's name, like he might appear from the wall. I stayed quiet, clutching the crochet blanket Raquel made me. Then I heard a muffled scream, like someone's heart had burst in silence. Lucas, again. But it wasn't a cry for help. It was longing in the form of grief. And in that moment, I realized the abandonment of the elderly doesn't begin when they're left in a nursing home. It begins when they are no longer remembered, even there, surrounded by walls that seemed to breathe boredom. There was a small light that kept blinking. My cell phone. Raquel sent me messages every single day. Voice notes. Her voice tired, hoarse, but full of longing. Mom, is everything okay over there? I'm trying to get better. Don't forget about me, okay? Each word from her was like a warm blanket for my soul. I replied with emojis, the ones she had taught me. I tried to seem strong, but inside, only God knows, her absence screamed, louder than Mrs. Marinalva's bedtime prayers. And the other kids, Jewel sent a heart emoji. One of those cold, red ones, no pulse. Silvana sent a 3-second audio, just clinking cutlery, and a voice in the background saying, I'm busy. I'll check it later. Eduardo, nothing. The same one who once spoke about specialized care now went silent, like a gravestone. And I sat there, waiting for something that wouldn't come. How is that even possible? To care for them like a mother all those years and end up as an ignored task. It was emotional abandonment wrapped in polite words. I wasn't asking for anything, just for them to remember I was still breathing. Until one warm afternoon, a nurse brought me my afternoon coffee with her eyes lowered. She murmured, Your daughter is in the ICU, right? I froze. What do you mean? I asked, the cup trembling in my hand. She looked awkward. Just something I overheard on the phone. The floor vanished beneath me once again. I hadn't been sleeping well already, but that night, insomnia had a name. Raquel was fighting for her life, and I was stuck in a place where no one even knew who I was. And for the first time in a long time, I felt real fear. On a Sunday morning, as the sunlight crept lazily through the curtains, I heard hurried footsteps in the hallway. They were different from the caregiver's mechanical pace. I got up slowly, with the feeling that something important was about to happen. Then the door opened. It was Luciana, my granddaughter, Raquel's daughter. Her eyes were teary, her face tired, but there was a light in her that carried a promise deep in her chest. She held a blue folder in her hands, different from Eduardo's black one. Grandma, I've come to take you home. My heart jumped like it hadn't in years. It was her. It was my mom who asked, she said, taking a deep breath. Before they sedated her, I tried to speak, but I could only cry. And sometimes, crying is all you can do when your soul recognizes love. Luciana handed the transfer papers to the director with a firmness that reminded me of Raquel. When she was young, my mother doesn't want her to die here, the woman from the nursing home insisted. This has to be approved by all the children. And Luciana replied, she doesn't need all of them. She needs the ones who stayed. I signed like I was signing my own freedom. My hand didn't tremble. It was my chance to return to where life still lived, even if small, even if temporary. As we gathered my few belongings, a blanket, an old photo, a picture frame with Carlos smiling, I felt something new. Hope. When we walked out the gates of Golden Years, the sun hit my face with intensity. I hadn't seen the sky like that in weeks. I made a promise to her, Grandma, and I'm going to keep it. I hugged Luciana with all the strength I had left, and in that embrace, something inside me shifted. Even though my daughter's illness hovered close, I was returning to a place where life still happened, but deep down, I knew my other children wouldn't take this lightly. Asterisk, there were 3 sharp knocks at the door, not asking permission, but barging in. Jewel came in first, impeccable as always, carrying that same scent of ego and strong cologne. Silvana followed right behind, high heels, heavy makeup, and a forced smile. And Eduardo, of course, brought along his inseparable black folder. Raquel was still resting in the bedroom, asleep after another round of antibiotics. I received them, sitting down, a blanket over my knees, and my heart standing guard. We need to talk, Mom. They didn't ask how I was. They didn't ask about Raquel. They came looking for pieces of what hadn't died yet. We need to discuss the house in Tatuape, the lots in Sauroke, Dad's investments, as if they were items in a clearance sale, as if none of it held memories, family Christmases, a grandchild's baptism. Silvana pulled out a sheet of paper and, as if expecting applause, said, we made a draft of the division, just to make things easier. My blood boiled. They couldn't even wait for Raquel to get out of bed before bringing up inheritance. Inheritance. As if I already had 1 foot in the grave. You need to be fair, they said. Fair. Such a beautiful word in the mouths of people who never looked at me with love in their eyes. I stood up slowly, my body tired, but my soul stronger than ever. I walked to the drawer, pulled out my blue notebook, and said, put it in writing. Everything goes to Raquel. The rest, let them contest it in hell. Silence. Not even the walls dared to creak. Jewel turned red, Eduardo looked ready to raise his voice. Silvana stammered something about influence, but in that moment, for the first time, I was heard. They forgot that inside this woman lives a story, and a betrayed mother writes her own will, and, if blood speaks, mine now screams for justice. Luciana showed up with her boyfriend's borrowed car and an extra coat for me. It was a cold morning, but my heart beat warm and fast, the way it does when you're running from something you never wanted. We got in the car without looking back, with every kilometer that took us farther from that place. I felt as though stones were being lifted from my chest one by one. On my lap, a photo of Raquel at 8 years old, hair wild at a school festival, smiling at me with crooked teeth and a gaze that said she'd never leave me. Clutching that photo, I closed my eyes and let the sunlight in. We arrived at a small apartment in an old building in the Penha neighborhood. It wasn't Tatuape, but it also wasn't Golden Years. The door creaked. The floor was cold, but the air smelled like freedom and cinnamon coffee. Raquel always did. That added cinnamon to the grounds so the house would smell good before the coffee even brewed. When I walked in, I saw colorful pillows on the sofa, a picture on the wall with a Bible verse, and the blanket I crocheted in 1986 draped over the armchair. I existed there, my scent, my story, my presence, all alive within those walls. There's cake in the oven, Luciana said, taking off her shoes. I used Grandma Lucia's recipe. I sat at the table with difficulty, but no pain. For the first time in weeks, I ate without needing help to cut anything. For the first time, I didn't feel like a burden. Raquel was still in the hospital, but there in that simple home was something sacred, the memory of someone who never abandoned me. And yet, even in that peace, I could feel it deep in my chest. Jewel, Silvana, and Eduardo wouldn't accept this quietly. They would come, and next time, they'd bring more than words. They'd bring poison, with velvet gloves. Asterisk, she was hospitalized for 23 days. 23 days of whispered prayers, unanswered messages, and sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, begging God to let her come back. And he did. Raquel left the hospital thinner. Her skin yellowed, her steps slow. She walked with the help of an aluminum cane, one of those with a wide base. But every step she took was a victory. Luciana brought her home on a Sunday under a shy sun. I got ready as if I were going to a party. Light lipstick, hair neatly tied back, and the blue blouse she always complimented. When she came in, leaning on her daughter, I froze. My heart seemed to forget how to beat. Raquel gave a faint smile and held out her hand. I went to her with legs that no longer bear the weight of the world. but still remember the way to a daughter's embrace. I stroked her face with my thin fingers, feeling the warmth of living skin. You came back, I whispered, and in that moment, the world began to spin again. The nursing home didn't matter anymore, nor the will, nor the siblings. She was there, and only someone who has feared losing a piece of their soul understands the value of a reunion. Like that Dot, we spent the rest of the afternoon sitting on the porch, each with a cup of tea. We didn't talk much. Silence between a mother and daughter can also be full of words. But even in that peace, I knew her siblings wouldn't give up so easily. You can feel it in the wind when the storm isn't over. And that night, after putting her to rest on the sofa, I received a notification on my phone. Eduardo had scheduled a meeting with a lawyer. It was only the beginning. On that cold morning, a man in a dark suit entered my living room like someone invading sacred ground. He was the lawyer hired by my other children to advise the family. He sat down with a folder full of papers and looked at me like I was a stubborn child. Eduardo, always by his side, smiled with that usual mask of arrogance. I explained that I had already written my will, and the lawyer responded, "You're under emotional influence, Mrs. Elvira. We can contest it." I nearly laughed, but the pain in my chest reminded me that's how betrayal works in a family. Trying to erase a mother's voice, so I decided to record everything. I grabbed my phone, set up the tripod, and spoke, looking straight into the camera. Like someone leaving behind a legacy, I leave 50% to my daughter Raquel. The rest will be divided among my other children. But know this, my justice will be done. The lawyer tried to interrupt, but I didn't back down. My steady voice became a shield against the silent betrayal that had tormented me for so long. That night, I received a call from Silvana. "Mom, let's talk." I hung up on her. I was done staying silent. I know this will turn into a storm, that the monsters wearing the faces of my children won't accept what I've done. But there's something they don't understand. A mother who has fought so hard for her family will not allow it to be torn apart by greed. In that video, I left more than words. I left my spirit, fighting for justice, dignity, and love to prevail. And if they want war, let it come. I'm ready. Asterisk sitting at the kitchen table, with the soft light of late afternoon pouring through the window. I picked up a pen and paper and began to write. Each line was a piece of my soul slowly pouring out. To Jewel, I wrote about the day my husband, Carlos, passed, and how I promised to raise the children alone with dignity and love, even when everything seemed to fall apart. To Silvana, I recalled the times she said I was too harsh, but explained that all my strictness was just fear, born from the abandonment I once lived through. To Eduardo, I wrote that silence and distance never erased the bond life gave us, and to Raquel, the light that never went out, I left words that time will never erase. I gave each letter to Luciana, trusting she would deliver them when the time was right. I wrote without fear, because at this age, you learn that truth, even bitter, holds a power time can't erase. In those pages, I poured out forgiveness and confrontation, tears and strength, sweet memories, and others that still ache, loneliness. In old age taught me that abandonment isn't just physical, it's emotional, and only those who feel it know the weight it carries. I wanted my children to understand that, despite everything, my love was always greater than their neglect. As I wrote, an overwhelming longing for Carlos gripped my chest, but I knew he was watching from above, proud of every battle I was still fighting. Would he be proud of me or ashamed of them? The question lingered in the air, like a silent prayer. I didn't know the answer, but deep down, the certainty that my story would not be forgotten gave me strength to carry on. Luciana and Raquel planned a surprise party in my small living room. The cake was homemade, the kind with chocolate frosting and cherries. That reminded me of birthdays from my childhood. Old photos were spread across the table. Me in my youth, Carlos smiling proudly, the grandkids running through the backyard. Their joy felt like a warm hug against the chill life so often brings. But the silence from my other children hung heavy in the air. Juo sent a generic email, didn't even call, as if the birthday were just an obligation on the calendar. Not a moment to show up. I sat between them, feeling the warmth only true love can bring. That night, the weight of abandonment felt lighter, as if the strength of those two women beside me could shield me from the outside world. For the first time in a long while, I felt that when my time came, I would die loved, not forgotten. The party was simple, but it had everything old age deserves: respect, affection, and truth. I knew life had given me more than selfish children. It gave me heirs of the heart. As I blew out the candles, I closed my eyes and gave thanks for the family that stayed, for the love that endures, for the hope that still shines. Because in the end, what truly matters isn't wealth or arguments, but the legacy of someone who chose to love without measure. And that night, wrapped in smiles and memories, I knew, despite everything, there was still so much left to live. Asterisk days passed, and my health began to show signs of wear. I hid the pain, the shortness of breath, so I wouldn't worry Raquel, who was still fighting her own demons at the hospital. The phone, which used to ring with Raquel's frequent check-ins, now sat in long, echoing silence. a quiet witness to the emotional abandonment I tried hard to ignore. Each unanswered call became a cruel reminder of who truly cared and who preferred to stay silent. One day, out of nowhere, the phone rang. It was Silvana. Her voice sounded different, almost like she was asking for forgiveness. But I, tired of empty apologies and rehearsed regrets, could only feel suspicion. Mom, I know I made mistakes, but I want to make things right. I hung up firmly, because not every word of repentance deserves to be heard. I looked at Raquel, asleep on the couch beside me, and smiled with the peace of someone who found true strength in love. And it was in that silence, between each breath, that I finally understood what truly matters. It's not the number of phone calls, but the presence that warms your heart. As Raquel slept, I let go of the pain and surrendered to the peace that only genuine love can give. Because, in the end, the phone that doesn't ring is the least of my problems. Now, when I look back, I see a road full of curves and stones, but also flowers that bloom through the cracks in the pavement. Life taught me that fear dissolves when we find what truly matters, not wealth, disputes, or abandonment, but the dignity we carry in each step, even when the world turns its back on us. I'm no longer afraid of death, because I know I've left something good in this world, a legacy of love that even loneliness and old age couldn't erase. As Raquel adjusts the blanket on the couch, I feel a calm wash over me, that silent embrace only a mother and daughter understand. Yes, my body is tired, but my soul rests in the certainty that, despite everything we endured, in the quiet of this humble home, I find the strength to close my eyes, knowing that my place is where love lives, not abandonment, because in the end, that's what remains, the love we chose to grow, even when the world tried to strip it away. And so, as night falls outside and the clock ticks away the hours of life, I sleep in peace. No fear, no bitterness, with a heart full of stories that no one can steal. After everything I've lived through, I want to ask you, how far would you go to protect the one you love? How many times have we accepted silence and neglect out of fear of facing the truth? What does dignity in old age mean to you? Does true love survive life's darkest moments? If this story touched you, share your thoughts or personal experiences in the comments. Let's give a voice to those who suffer in silence and prove that it's never too late to turn the game around. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to receive more real stories that inspire and move the soul.